The previous government did use migrant labour far too much instead of actually building skills here in the UK.
Now, it would appear Labour's approach to these rather important issues is not just misguided, it's downright dangerous for Britain's future. The housing crisis that isn't, or is it?
Angela Rayner's housing strategy crumbles under scrutiny as Jeremy Clarkson reveals 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants. This startling claim, based on Labour's own figures, throws their entire plan into question. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. As Clarkson digs deeper, he uncovers a web of contradictions that leave Rayner fumbling for answers. From denying her own party's statistics to failing to address the growing number of immigrants housed in properties meant for the homeless, this video exposes the truth behind Labour's grand promises. Angela Rayner's stance on the UK housing crisis is a puzzle wrapped in a contradiction. On one hand, she insists there's a severe shortage of homes, painting a picture of desperate families struggling to find affordable housing. Yet in the same breath, she claims there's an abundance of available properties. It's as if she's trying to have her cake and eat it too, leaving many wondering, which is it, Angela? This confusing narrative sets the stage for Labour's ambitious plan to build 1.5 million new homes.
A million immigrants that are in Rachel Reeves' budget figures going to turn up. Where are they going to live?
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses especially...
Well, Rayner began by highlighting a housing crisis only to perform an astonishing U-turn just moments later.
It's a lofty goal that's raised more than a few eyebrows in the construction industry. Experts are questioning whether it's even remotely feasible, given the current constraints on labour, materials, and planning permissions. One prominent builder remarked, "It's like promising to build a skyscraper with a box of Legos. The numbers just don't add up." But let's take a step back and look at the current housing landscape. Data on existing stock and occupancy rates tell an interesting story. While there are indeed areas with high demand and limited supply, many regions are grappling with a different problem: vacant properties. In some towns, rows of empty houses stand as silent testimony to the complexities of the housing market. This begs the question, if there's plenty of housing, as Rayner suggests, why the urgent need for more? It's a bit like insisting on baking more bread when the bakery shelves are already full. The disconnect between Labour's rhetoric and the reality on the ground is startling. As we dig deeper into Labour's housing strategy, the first key inconsistency emerges like a crack in the foundation. They're proposing a massive building program without adequately addressing why existing properties aren't being utilised effectively. It's a glaring oversight that calls into question the entire premise of their plan. But here's the kicker. This housing puzzle is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Labour's contradictions.
That more than 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants.
Well, that's not the truth, and that's not the
That's
case.
what will happen.
Well, that's not the reality.
Claiming, suddenly, there is plenty of housing already. OK, so there's a bewildering contradiction here, and it's left even the seasoned interviewer, Sir Trevor Phillips, visibly taken aback.
As we peel back the layers of their policies, more inconsistencies come to light, each one more baffling than the last. It's as if their strategy was cobbled together from conflicting ideas, with little thought given to how they'd actually work in practice. Just when you thought Labour's housing strategy couldn't get more convoluted, Jeremy Clarkson throws a wrench into the works. His claim about new homes and immigrants isn't just controversial, it's a direct challenge to Labour's entire plan. But before you dismiss it as mere provocation, consider this. What if Clarkson's numbers are closer to the truth than Labour wants to admit? Clarkson's bombshell assertion that 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants sent shockwaves through the political landscape. But where did this figure come from? Surprisingly, it's rooted in Labour's own budget projections. Their numbers indicate a need for 2.5 million migrants, a staggering figure that raises serious questions about housing allocation. When we compare these immigration projections with Labour's proposed housing targets, the math simply doesn't add up. If Labour plans to build 1.5 million new homes and their own budget suggests 2.5 million new immigrants, where exactly does that leave current UK residents struggling to find housing? It's a numbers game that paints a troubling picture of Labour's priorities.
I wanted to come along and support farmers.
What happens next if they don't listen across the road?
Well, I've got some ideas.
So,
whoa, hang on.
affordable
You can't,
homes
on the
that
one
we're
hand, say
building.
we've got to build this 1.5 million houses, and then say there's plenty of housing already.
The potential impact of increased immigration on housing demand can't be overstated. With an additional 20,000 immigrants since Labour took office, the existing housing shortage has only intensified. This influx puts even more pressure on an already strained market, making it increasingly difficult for the average Brit to secure affordable housing. When confronted with Clarkson's claim, Angela Rayner's response was less than convincing. She struggled to provide concrete evidence to refute the figures, instead falling back on vague reassurances. Her failure to address the underlying issues of housing allocation for immigrants versus the homeless only fueled further skepticism about Labour's plan. As we dig deeper into Labour's approach to immigration and housing, a muddled picture emerges. The party seems out of touch with public concerns about housing availability and the impact of immigration. It's as if they're trying to solve a complex puzzle with mismatched pieces, hoping no one will notice the glaring inconsistencies. So, how will Labour reconcile these conflicting numbers? The answer remains elusive, and that's precisely the problem. This glaring inconsistency in their plan, promising new homes while simultaneously projecting a massive increase in immigration, represents a fundamental flaw in their strategy. With these contradictions now laid bare, Labour's credibility on housing and immigration hangs by a thread. It's not just about numbers on a page, it's about the real-world consequences of poorly thought-out policies.
It's a £2 billion black hole. We protected the most vulnerable pensioners. We put the household support fund in for those that are not eligible for pension credit. I've announced £140 million for new construction hubs so that we can train people here to deliver those housing. So I don't accept that we're going to bring migrants in for that.
As voters grapple with these revelations, they're left wondering, can Labour be trusted to address the housing crisis when their own figures don't even add up? As we've seen, Labour's housing strategy is riddled with contradictions. On one hand, they claim there's both a housing shortage and plenty of available homes. On the other, their immigration projections clash spectacularly with their housing targets. It's a bit like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while blindfolded. Frustrating and ultimately futile. These inconsistencies highlight why we can't just take political claims at face value, especially on critical issues like housing. As Jeremy Clarkson aptly put it, when a politician can't explain their own plan clearly, it doesn't inspire confidence. And confidence is in short supply when it comes to Labour's housing proposals. The UK's housing crisis is a complex beast, one that requires thoughtful, realistic solutions. But Labour's approach seems more like wishful thinking than a solid plan. It's crucial that we demand transparency and accountability from our politicians, rather than accepting vague promises and contradictory statements. Only then can we hope to tackle the real challenges facing UK housing policy and work towards meaningful solutions that benefit everyone, not just those who shout the loudest.